Ever find yourself running your hand over a beautifully smooth table or admiring a perfectly crafted piece of furniture?
Where you just can't help but appreciate the craftsmanship.
Well, today we're going deep on the folks behind that magic. Planar thicknesser operators.
And let me tell you, there's a whole lot more to it than meets the eye.
We're diving deep into the world of wood, machines, and the surprising artistry behind creating those flawless surfaces we often take for granted.
And we've got some great material to work with. Career guides, interview tips, even some insights into how this field is navigating the whole AI revolution.
Because believe it or not, even woodworking is getting in on the AI action.
It's true. But before we get ahead of ourselves, maybe we should start with the basics.
Absolutely. So for those who might not be familiar, what exactly does a planar thicknesser operator do?
In the simplest terms, they use a specialized machine, a planar thicknesser, to shave down rough lumber into those perfectly smooth, even planks you find in furniture, flooring, all sorts of things.
So kind of like a giant super precise sander.
That's a good way to put it. But it's not just about sanding, it's about precision.
Precision.
Yeah, making sure every board is exactly the same thickness with no bumps or dips. Because even a tiny discrepancy can throw off an entire project.
I can imagine. I get frustrated when a drawer is even slightly misaligned.
Exactly. Now imagine that on a much larger scale. These operators are all about preventing those little frustrations.
I'm starting to realize this is a lot more detail-oriented than I initially thought.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of details, the research mentioned something called, get this, snipe.
Snipe. What in the woodworking world is snipe?
Right. Sounds kind of funny. But trust me, it's no laughing matter for a woodworker.
All right, you've got me intrigued. What is it?
So snipe is this annoying little issue that can pop up during the planing process. Basically, when you get these unwanted grooves or dips, usually at the beginning or end of a board, right when you think you've got this perfectly smooth surface.
Oh, I see. So all that work and then bam, ruined by a snipe.
Exactly. And it's one of the biggest challenges for these operators, how to avoid the dreaded snipe.
Okay, now I have to know. How do they do that? How do you prevent something that sounds kind of inevitable?
Well, it comes down to skill, experience, and really knowing your machine.
So it's more than just pushing buttons and pulling levers.
Oh, much more. A good operator develops a feel for the wood, how it's reacting to the machine, the grain direction. They're constantly making tiny adjustments to the feed rate, cutting depth, pressure, all while keeping an eye out for any signs of trouble.
So like a dance,
Yeah.
almost,
Yeah.
but with a very powerful, potentially dangerous partner.
That's a great way to put it. And just like a good dance partner, they have to anticipate the wood's movements and adjust accordingly.
It sounds like this job requires a unique blend of technical skill and, dare I say, artistry.
You're absolutely right.
There's a certain intuition that comes with experience, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. A seasoned operator can often tell just by looking at a piece of wood how it needs to be fed through the machine to avoid snipe.
Wow, so they develop almost like a sixth sense for it.
Exactly. And that kind of expertise is invaluable in this line of work.
Fascinating. But it makes you wonder, with all the talk about automation these days, is this something a robot could even do?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And one we'll definitely be digging into a bit later.
We'll tackle that head on, but first, let's talk about the career itself, because surprisingly, it offers a lot more than just a paycheck.
Yeah, from what I've been reading, this isn't just a factory job. It's a path with some serious potential.
You got it. And it all ties back to this idea of craftsmanship and the unique skills these operators bring to the table, or should I say, to the workbench.
So let's talk career path.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, job stability.
Okay, that's always good.
Right. People will always need things made out of wood, so there's always going to be a demand for skilled operators. But it's more than just stability. It's also about variety.
Variety. I was picturing more of a same machine, different day kind of vibe.
I get where you're coming from, but think about it. Wood is wood, right? But there are so many different types.
True. You've got your oaks, your maples, your exotic hardwoods, each one with its own, personality.
Exactly. And each one requiring a slightly different approach, different settings on the machine, a different feel from the operator.
So there's room for specialization even within this one field.
Absolutely. Imagine becoming known as the go-to person for, say, reclaimed wood.
Oh, that's cool. Giving new life to old pieces, like restoring antique furniture or something.
Exactly. Or maybe you develop a niche working with those really high-end exotic hardwoods, the kind of stuff you see in those glossy design magazines.
Okay, now that you're painting a picture, I'm starting to see the appeal. It's not just about making smooth surfaces. It's about becoming a master of your craft.
Exactly. And as you master your craft, new opportunities open up.
Like what?
Well, you could move into a leadership role, become a supervisor, train new hires, manage a team.
So even if you start out as a solo artist, there's room to grow into a more managerial role.
Absolutely. Or if you're the entrepreneurial type, you could even start your own shop, specialize in custom work.
Now we're talking. But how does building a portfolio work for a job like this? Is it like taking pictures of your smoothest planks?
You're not wrong. Documentation is key. Think before and after photos of furniture you've restored, close-ups of intricate details, maybe even testimonials from happy customers.
It's like you're saying, look, I can make magic happen with a planer thicknesser.
Precisely. And in today's job market, standing out is everything. Speaking of which, that reminds me, we were talking about AI earlier. Did you know RoleCatcher actually has tools specifically for people in this field?
Really? I thought RoleCatcher was more for like tech jobs and stuff.
They've got a wide range of resources, actually. But yeah, they have a whole section dedicated to skilled trades, including planer thicknesser operators. They can help with things like optimizing your resume, finding relevant job openings, even prepping for interviews.
Wow, that's really impressive. It's cool to see how technology can be used to support, not just replace, these kinds of traditional crafts.
I agree. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it's all about how you use it.
So speaking of technology, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room, automation.
Yeah, we can't talk about the future of work without talking about automation. And in a field like this, where precision is paramount, you have to wonder, are robots going to take over?
It's the question on everyone's mind, isn't it? Will robots come for the woodworkers? It's the question on everyone's mind, isn't it? Are robots going to show up at the sawmill? You know?
It's a valid question, and the answer, like with so many things these days, is it's complicated.
Okay, so walk me through it.
Well, on one hand, yeah, automation is changing the woodworking industry, especially in those big factories that churn out furniture by the truckload. Robots are great at that kind of repetitive work, where everything needs to be exactly the same.
Makes sense. Robots love consistency.
Exactly. But here's the thing about wood. Every single piece is different. The grain, the density, even those little knots and imperfections, it's all unique. And that's where humans, with their ability to adapt and adjust, still have the upper hand.
So those little imperfections are actually a good thing, at least when it comes to job security.
You could say that. Robots thrive on predictability, and wood is anything but predictable.
It's like those CAPI-TCH tests online, where you have to click on all the pictures of stop signs or whatever to prove you're not a robot.
Yes, exactly. Even the most advanced AI struggles with those organic, irregular shapes. And wood, being a natural material, is full of them.
So you're saying there are still some things robots just can't replicate?
At least not yet.
That's reassuring. But it also makes you wonder, what does the future hold for planer thicknesser operators? If it's not robots taking over completely, what's the outlook?
I think it's less about replacement and more about collaboration.
Collaboration. Humans and robots working side by side.
Precisely. Imagine robots handling the heavy lifting, the initial cuts, the repetitive tasks, and then you have skilled operators stepping in to do the fine-tuning, the detail work, the quality control that requires that human touch, that eye for detail.
That's a much more optimistic outlook and probably a lot more realistic.
Exactly. It's not about fearing the robots. It's about adapting and evolving alongside them.
So what you're saying is the key to staying ahead of the automation curve is to keep learning, keep honing those uniquely human skills that robots haven't mastered yet.
Absolutely. That's the best way to future-proof any career, really.
Great advice. So for anyone listening who might be feeling a little anxious about the future of work, it's not about robots versus humans. It's about finding ways to work together, to leverage our strengths, and to never stop learning and adapting.
Well said. And that's the beauty of exploring these careers in such depth. We gain a better understanding not just of the job itself, but also of the bigger picture, the human element that remains so vital even in our increasingly technological world.
I completely agree. Well, on that note, a huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this fascinating deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about a field I knew very little about.
It was my pleasure. Always happy to shed some light on the often overlooked world of woodworking.
And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to check out the show notes for links to RoleCatcher. They have a ton of resources, whether you're considering a career as a planer thicknesser operator or just want to up your job hunting game in general.
And if you found this discussion about automation and the future of work as thought-provoking as we did, we encourage you to keep the conversation going. What skills do you think will be most valuable in the years to come? How can we prepare ourselves for the changing world of work? Share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, stay curious, everyone.